if you prove that you can actually pay your loan, you have a good credit rating, then you're able to borrow much more. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, then people are just going to borrow to go on holiday in Mombasa. Mtu tu atachukua tu loan alafu ataenda kupiga sherehe huko loft na kule kwingine.
Did you listen to the Hot Breakfast this morning? Here's what you missed.
Well, Kimani Kuria is a chairman, Finance and National Planning Committee. He's also the MP for Molo. Mheshimiwa, good to see you. Karibu sana.
Good to see you, Jeff. Good morning.
Tell me, the Hustlers Fund, right? You set up a fund here, and people are saying, hey, but there is no board, there is no secretariat, there is no institution. I mean, how does it work?
First of all, the Hustlers Fund is relying on the existing infrastructure that has been used in other platforms, whether it is, especially with the telecoms, whether it's Safaricom M-Pesa or Airtel Money or T-Cash by Telcom. So the government is not trying to reinvent the wheel. Saying, come on, there has been an existing infrastructure, there has been funds that have been passed to people. Just that the previous platforms have had very high interest rates. It was very difficult to borrow, and then there were like around 8 million Kenyans that had been blacklisted. Because, Jeff, remember, the rise of digital loans came after COVID-19. That's when I think, for the first time, even myself, that's the first time I got into Fuliza,
Right.
Because those times we were not going to work, the businesses were not working, nothing was working that time, so people got into digital platforms to borrow. And of course, businessmen being businessmen took advantage of the platform. If you remember, the Honorable Jude Jomo, former MP for Kiambu, came up with the interest rates capping. So if you go to borrow from a bank, there is that rate you can't pay above. And right now, for example, the market rate for banks is around 14% per annum. But came digital loans. No regulation, no law, no nothing. And like, for example, the Southern branch were lending up to 356% per annum. And that would mean it's if you compare 14% against 356% per annum. Came again things like Fuliza. For you to just access Fuliza loans, you had to, the facilitation fee was 7.5%. Just facilitation fee for you to access it. It doesn't mean that you get it or not, but just to access the fee was 7.5%. And that's why the president, in his wisdom, and after going around the country, Kenyans told him that a
lot of people are saying they've applied for the Hustlers Fund, and it's taking them, what, 48 hours to get approved?
Jeff, this is a new fund. We have had, when the fund was launched, within the first 1 second, there was around 6,000 applicants. They're just waiting. 6,000 the first second. In the next 1 hour, we're around 6 million Kenyans. This is the highest number of applications any digital platform has ever had. I'm talking about any digital platform in the Republic of Kenya. This is the highest traffic we've ever had. Safaricom hasn't dealt with that. Airtel hasn't dealt with that. Telecom hasn't dealt with that. This is the highest traffic any telecom has ever dealt with. Jeff, what this Hustler Fund is going to do, we are going to take our loans into a single-digit interest rate. Even forget the Hustlers Fund. Forget all that we're saying. Overall, the macroeconomic principle of this loan is that in a few months, trust you me, we are going to get Kenya into a single-digit interest rate. Let me demonstrate to you why. The people that are going to access this loan are the what we call the riskiest borrowers. No security. You don't even know that person because you're just exchanging communication in a digital platform. So there's no one-to-one. I don't know you. You're the one. You're borrowing from government, but I don't know you. I don't have security from you. And if therefore then this fund proves that you can actually lend to the most risky borrowers in the Republic at 8% per annum, banks, cooperatives, they have no choice.
Okay, the people,
they'll have to lower the interest rate to a single digit.
some people are asking, where's the source of the funds? Where's the source of these loans?
If you remember, the president, in his speech at the inauguration at Kasarani, said, we can't afford the life we're living. He said, this government cannot afford to continue the way we're running. We are spending more than we're earning. Our debt to GDP ratio is around 70%. The highest for any developing country. In fact, IMF has told us, guys, you should at 50%, not at 70%. So the first thing the president did, is to tell the state departments that we have to cut the budgets for all the departments and save 300 billion. So the 50 billion in the Hustlers Fund is what has been saved from all these directors, PSs, and all who travel abroad for peer review, for training, for benchmarking. The president said no. Mkitaka mkutano fanyia kwa ofisi.
Okay, the question is there a danger that the rush to get the Hustlers Fund up and running could circumvent the law?
If you read the voice and the mood of the president, is that he's very clear on taking the law. So before we launch it on the 1st of, I think it was the 31st of December at Green Park, sometimes, Jeff, some of us forget that you cannot just wake up and make a law. You cannot just wake up tomorrow and say, this is what we're going to do. There is a constitution, and the constitution is very clear on the role of public participation in terms of regulation and passing our laws. So the regulations on what's called the integrated financial system, what we call the Hustlers Fund, had to go through public participation, had to come through Parliament through the Committee on Delegated Legislation, chaired by the Honorable Chepkonga. It was approved that morning, and once the president had that the August House, that the Parliament had approved the regulations. That's the only time he came to Green Park to launch that fund. So I'm telling you for a fact that everything is above board. We have passed the required regulation. People are asking, why is this money coming from? And as I said, these are what the president said about austerity measures, and told state departments that we cannot continue to spend money on printing documents. We cannot continue to spend money on travel, unnecessary travel. Kama unataka communicate na PS mwingine, mtumie email. That's sufficient. But the printing of the documents, the travels, the whole thing of meetings, that had to end. And that has saved this country 300 billion, 50 of which has now been put into the Hustlers Fund. Concerns have emerged over the safety of the data being collected for one to access the money. How are Kenyans protected from abuse? I'll tell dear Kenyans, we passed the data protection law in the 12th Parliament, and there's even a data commission. There's a data protection commission in this republic centered through the Communication Authority. So Hustlers Fund is relying on the existing on existing infrastructure by our telecoms. And that's why, some people are asking, why do I require to kill my M-Pesa pin? Because the reason why you don't have to register for that fund, it doesn't ask you for a ID number, it doesn't ask you for your next of kin, it doesn't ask you for where you live, it doesn't ask you for what you do, because that data is already available in the system. So the Hustlers Fund is not, again, trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just relying on the existing infrastructure. So the same way that all the other digital applications were able to lend money to you, it's the same way Hustler Fund is doing, but at only 8% per annum, with a saving component, and very soon with an insurance, with a hospital fund component on it. If you tell that border operator, that mama boga, that farmer, that you can call between NSF, but who is matching that fund in NSF? And that's why you're saying, if you take this NSF product, for every 2 shillings that you save, then the government matches it with 1 shilling. So we're telling you, hustlers in this republic, your employer now is the government of Kenya, GOK. As long as you save through Hustlers Fund, the government is matching 1 shilling for every 2 that you save in the Hustlers Fund. The same way it's happening with other salaried people.
Finally, Chairman, are you hopeful? I mean, are you worried this system might crash because so many people are applying at the same time? It might just crash, huh?
It took a lot of time for us to launch the product, and we have used that is what we call blockchain technology, and that has been used. It has been tested. I think at some point there was even an award before it got launched. We call all the techs in this country, tell them the system, hack it, and they're going to pay you if you hack it, and nobody was able to do that. So it's above board, it's foolproof. We're using the best technology there can be in the world, and that's why, because remember also, Jeff, you're also coming from, these funds have been launched before. If you remember in 2013, when President Uhuru won, he told us that if I win the first round and not take me to a runoff, the 5 billion that would save for a runoff, we would use it in a fund called Uwezo Fund. But what happened? The bureaucracies came about. You have to belong to a chama, you have to register. There is a Uwezo Fund committee that you must sit through. Then, if it's that youth in Turi who's applying for that fund, then that form goes to Molo. Then it's checked by someone in Nakuru. Then it's checked by somebody in Nairobi. By the time we are turning around to that person to tell them whether they have got the fund or not, it's 6 months later. So really, even if you had a business idea or whatever you want to do with that fund, a lot has changed. And now this is formed from that basis, that can we have a real-time fund that gives you a direct response? And like what you said, this fund is telling you that you can reply to us with that you'll be able to get feedback in 24, 48 hours. That is a record time. In fact, if you go to take a loan application at the bank, they don't tell you that they're going to reach out back to you in 24, 48 hours. So the fact that this is a government facility that is promising to respond to you within 48 hours, I think that is revolutionary.
Yeah. And finally, Mheshimiwa, if people refuse to pay, they can be put on CRB?
For a very long time, the credit rating that we've used in this country is what we call blacklisting. If I'm not able to pay my loan, you blacklist me. And what now this fund is doing, we're changing from blacklisting to credit rating, where and that's why and I'd like to address this concern by many Kenyans. That's why people are asking, why am I getting only 800 shillings? Why am I getting only 1,000 shillings? The essence is to graduate you. Borrow 800, repay. Tomorrow, if you borrow again, you get 1,000. After that, you get 1,500. After that, you get 2,000. We graduate until you get to 50,000, and that's what and that's the 50 billion that we set aside for this fund. In the next 90 days, the president said that we're going now to have from 100,000 shillings to 5 million. So if you prove that you can actually repay your loan, you have a good credit rating, then you're able to borrow much more. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, then people are just going to borrow to go and hold in Mombasa. Mtu tu atachukua tu loan alafu ataenda kupiga sherehe huko loft na kule kwingine. Tukianza kumuitisha,
Mheshimiwa, you know where the loft is.
Come on, I'm 3 years old. What do you expect?
Honorable Kimani Francis Kuria, thank you so much. Chairman, Finance and National Planning Committee, also MP from Molo. Nashukuru sana. All the best, brother.